Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. I'm Jim Cardle. The nation's unemployment figures, Planned Parenthood has gone political in advertising, and poll numbers from across the country. We're joined today by Bobby Eberle of GOP USA. Bobby, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming in. GOP USA is based out of Houston. You cover national politics. I want to get to some polling numbers first, but
Okay.
It was a month ago that you were here with us, and unemployment at that point had gone sideways.
Right.
Everybody's watching unemployment as much as any other economic indicator for this political season. Now, last week, unemployment back up a touch. What's your
Right.
read?
Well, it's the worst scenario for Obama because people will vote issues they think are close to their hearts. They'll say that all day long, but when the economy is bad, that's the issue that's number one, far and away number one. And with the unemployment going up, job creation was pathetic that last month. It just does not paint a good scenario for Obama's reelection. And there's a number of trends out there right now that paint a good picture for the GOP. One of them, again, Obama is failing on the economy. And shortly after he came into office, Republicans started doing better on that issue. A survey showed that if they asked who could handle the economy better, Republicans or Democrats, around 6 months into Obama's administration, Republicans started ticking up. Well,
This was during the bailouts, during
yes, and
the
just
TARP money.
As soon as they saw what Obama could do, they started turning against him and turning toward Republican voters in general, saying that Republicans can handle the economy better. Well, now, as Rasmussen shows in the latest poll, for the first time in 5.5 years, that number has topped 50%.
So Republicans having the better.
Right. So the majority of registered voters feel that Republicans can handle the economy better, and the economy is the number one issue. The second issue on their mind is health care, and Republicans even lead in that by a percentage point. They're still adamantly opposed to Obamacare. So if his signature piece of legislation is opposed by the electorate and the economy is the number one issue and the majority of voters want Republicans, it just paints a good picture for Romney.
So let me see if I'm interpreting this right. It's couched generally in the mainstream press as it being a pocketbook issue, a referendum on the Obama administration. However, what I hear you're saying reflected in the polls is that it's almost how he's going about things because he's using government as the tool as opposed to the free market. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's
underlying.
Partly, yeah, that is the underlying thing because in another poll, a separate poll, it was a simple question, but it really makes people think, is that out of Romney or Obama, how many of you feel that the particular person is mainstream or do you feel he's extreme?
Okay.
And Romney has held steady. He's ticked up 1 percentage point over the past month from 51 to 52%.
After being under attack all primary season for being more mainstream.
52% of the voters out there feel he's a mainstream candidate. He's not extreme. And yet only 45% feel Obama's mainstream. And he's actually gone down. And I think, again, it's because of the economy and some of these issues on social issues, which those might not rate as the highest among voters, but they'll touch a nerve. And when it gets people thinking, that's what causes them to say, you know what, he is a little out of touch with how I feel as an American, as a voter, and it's showing in the polls.
Well, let me ask you to drill down a little bit deeper because if you followed presidential elections, they always come down to the last couple weeks. They're always extremely close, and it's a battle for the undecided independent voter.
Right.
Essentially 5 to 6% of the populace.
Right.
It sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Those are the folks who are really going to be impacted. We won't see it for a while, but
sure. I mean, if you're talking about your general voter, the ones that really don't come out in the primaries but will get riled up for the election, most of them feel that they're Joe American, mainstream voters. And so I think that the candidate, in this case, who's leading, who most people think is mainstream, that relates to them, they're not buying this act that Romney's some elitist out of touch. What they're seeing is that Obama is a far left-wing president, and they don't like that. They see him as the extreme one, and they see Romney as more mainstream. And I think that paints a big picture. And the other thing is, of the key states to watch, You're talking Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia, states that flipped and went Democrat.
From Bush to Obama.
Exactly. Romney's leading in all of those. And really, every state matters, but if you look at those four and you see the trends, it spells bad news for Obama.
And let's jump, if we can, to a particular issue. Again, folks, thanks for joining us. We're visiting with Bobby Eberle from GOPUSA.com. It was in the news last week that the Catholic bishops are thinking about suing the Obama administration over some of this mandated health care delivery. Talk about that, if you would, a little bit, because it seems to be the war on women. The word abortion is rarely mentioned, but this is a crucial issue that's going to have striking impacts of the candidates, correct?
Absolutely. And again, it goes to the point where, yes, people are primarily focused on the economy, but if you have these other issues that just reinforce a bad opinion about the leadership,
or clarify it,
right?
Essentially.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what the Obama administration, it seems, is doing for them.
Right. They're going. The Obama administration is making it easy for people to see just how extreme they are. And the Catholic bishops, as you said, they're preparing a flyer for bulletins to show congregations and parishioners to prepare for civil disobedience. Basically, that we are not going to follow this law that blatantly has us violate our faith. They're just not going to do it. And the Obama administration is standing firm on that. So it's going to come to a head.
And it was even said that some bishops need to be prepared to go to jail as part of this civil disobedience. Right. But talk about Planned Parenthood. I believe you wrote an article the other day. It said for the third time only in history, Planned Parenthood has endorsed a candidate. Exactly. It was Obama, but they're actually going to be putting money, taxpayer money.
Exactly. They've already produced an ad that's blasting Romney, saying he's harmful to women. He doesn't care about women's health, and to the tune of $1.4 million they've pumped in, and they've come out officially endorsing Barack Obama. But what should have everyone outraged is just not what Planned Parenthood does, but by the fact that they get taxpayer money. And now they are taking money and funding a candidate, endorsing a candidate, which the IRS or whatever organization should be all over them, because no one that's taking taxpayer money should then be turning it around and spending it on political campaigns and endorsing political campaigns or blasting another candidate. They should just do the job they're doing. Their funding should be cut 100% down to nothing.
Well, it's been a big issue here in Texas as the last budget cut funding for Planned Parenthood. It's still being worked out, not in the courts, but with legislators and the governor's office trying to come up with funding to provide true women's services. But what about the other states in the country? Do you see this issue as a point of a spear? Is it really going to be as crucial?
I think so. I mean, every legislative session in states, they try and do what they can to further the pro-life movement. Roe v. Wade is out there, but it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that states are still trying to get the particular case. Whether it's notification or partial birth or whatever it is, to try to put forth legislation at the state level that, so far a lot of them haven't passed muster. Some judge will strike it down. But there's always that opportunity then that becomes the case where we can kind of change the course of American history and get things the way they should be. Now you've got this issue with the selective sex abortion that the House voted on, where Planned Parenthood is basically complicit in guiding women to have abortions simply because they don't like the sex of their child.
It's almost unbelievable, it would seem to me, to the average voter, that the discussion or the subject, it gives you the heebie-jeebies to think about the concept, but it is in fact something that's going on.
It's going on right now, and again, this is an organization that gets taxpayer money, and yet they always couch it in, we're protecting women's health. Well, there's nothing about women's health that has to do with, do I want a boy or a girl? And if it's the one I don't want, I'm going to get rid of that child. I'm going to kill that baby. It's just unconscionable. And hopefully this raises people's awareness. They know what's going on. Most people don't like abortions. They know it's legal. But when you see what this organization is doing, maybe it's finally time that we can put a stop to it.
Speaking of raising the issues or raising the focus, folks, we're visiting with Bobby Eberle from GOPUSA.com. And one final issue before we run out of time here, that has to do with a column you wrote a couple weeks ago. Sarah Palin has endorsed recently here in Texas Ted Cruz. Mike Huckabee has endorsed David Dewhurst at the Senate level. But you wrote about whether Sarah Palin's endorsement matters in Utah. Talk about some of these outside sources, and particularly in regards to Texas, if you would, how that might or might not play here.
Right. You know, Texas is an interesting state, our home state. We've got, and it's this mentality that's existed from the very beginning, that not only where we are our own state, we're our own country, we'll think like we want to think.
Davy Crockett saying, "You can go to hell, I'm going to Texas."
Exactly.
Right?
And you see that with these endorsements, that you can bring in the high-profile players, but, you know, a Huckabee here, a Palin there, it's really just, they just wash each other out, because Texas voters, they're going to see the Texas economy, they're going to see how things are doing. You can tell how Texas compares to other states in the nation, other countries around
Globally.
the world, to see that the economy's doing well, and they'll make their own decisions. So I don't think these endorsements really carry a lot of weight.
Okay, Bobby, we're going to leave it there. Appreciate
Thanks,
you
Jim.
coming in. As always, folks, be sure to visit GOPUSA.com for more information from Bobby Eberle, particularly the Loft section. And don't forget to tune in for future issues of Texas Insider TV. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Jim Cardle.
That was nice. Man, I lost my bet, didn't I?
Y'all have a good day.